Now by the top Republican on the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan. Thank you for coming in. Today, threshold question. Do you think it's appropriate for President Trump to ask China and Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
George, you really think he was serious about thinking that China's going to investigate the Biden family?
He said it right there in public.
I think he's getting, as I think Senator Rubio said a couple days ago, I think he's getting the press all spun up about this. Remember, this is the president who's been tougher on China than any other president. He wants to make sure China quit stealing America's intellectual property. He wants to make sure they start abiding by international trade norms. And tougher than anyone. He's put tariffs on China, and you really think he says, oh, the same guy who's been tougher on China now thinks, oh, China's going to investigate the Biden. He was just making a statement to just underscore how wrong it is what took place here with Hunter Biden getting these deals that he got. That's all he's doing.
So the president asked China to investigate. We're not supposed to take the president at his word?
I think Senator Rubio said it best. This is the president. You guys would think after 3.5 years, you would, with the campaign and everything else, you'd figure out some of the ways that this guy's...
The exact same thing he said in private to the Ukrainian president.
I wish there would be the same outrage for what the president said about China, the same outrage that there was when we saw when the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee hired a foreigner who worked with Russians to dig up dirt on the president, put it in a document that was given to the Department of Justice, and then the FBI used that document to go to a secret court to spy on the Trump campaign. And you guys weren't outraged about that, but now the president makes a statement about China, the guy who's been tougher on China than any other president, and you think this is somehow a big deal.
So should I conclude from that you don't think it would be appropriate for the president to ask China to investigate the Bidens?
I think he's just making this, I'm just telling you what the statement is. You asked me about the statement. I'm saying I don't think anyone in America really believes, except people maybe in the press and some Democrats in Congress, really believe that the president of the United States thinks China is going to investigate. He's making a statement.
Well, he's asking for it, and the president hasn't said he's joking. He said a very direct statement. He wasn't smiling there. Sure. He wasn't laughing. It wasn't a joke.
You don't think this president's been the toughest president on China? Imposed tariffs on China? You don't think this president wants to make sure China starts abiding by international trade norms, starts dealing with the theft of intellectual property? You don't think... I mean, okay, you can think that, but I just don't think that's what the case.
I'm asking if you think it's appropriate for the president to ask China to investigate.
I think he's saying what's on the minds of so many Americans. That's not what I'm asking. I think he's saying what's on the minds of so many Americans. How does the vice president's son get $1 billion from a bank, a subsidiary of the Bank of China? How does he get that deal just a couple weeks after he flies on Air Force 2 to China? I think he's just pointing out the fact. He says it in the way he says it, but I don't think it's really like, oh, China, go investigate the Biden.
That's not a fact, and it's not true, and the Chinese have denied it as well. But I still haven't gotten an answer to the question. Is it appropriate for the president to ask China to investigate Joe Biden?
I think he's got you guys all spun up, and obviously it's the case. You've asked me the question. You've asked me the question like 4 times. I've answered
because you haven't answered it.
I don't think he really meant go investigate. Do you think China's going to investigate him?
I don't know if China's going to investigate him. I know the president asked China to investigate.
We know they're not, George. Come on.
Why can't you answer yes or no? Do you think it's appropriate?
I don't, because I don't think that's what he did. I don't think that's what he did.
But it was right there on camera.
I think Senator Rubio had it exactly right. I think our side says this is exactly what, I think most Americans say this is exactly what the president was doing. You would think after, like I said, a few years of following this president, you would understand sort of how this guy communicates. I think that's what he's doing.
You're still not answering the question. If the president is asking China to investigate, which he did right there, is that appropriate? Is that an abuse of power, or is that appropriate?
I think when the president is, and this is why it relates to Ukraine, I think when the president is trying to make sure that there is not corruption, that if we're going to be sending the hard-earned tax dollars of the American people to Ukraine to help them fight Russia, to help them get their country moving in the direction they need, to get the security assistance they need, I think he believes that we should make sure there's not corruption there. It's not President Trump's fault that Joe Biden's son was hired by a company that Mr. Volker told us this Thursday when we had him in for the interview, the ambassador, the special envoy to Ukraine. It's not President Trump's fault that Joe Biden's son was hired by Burisma, this company that had a long history of corruption. I think the president, when he's trying to decide how American tax dollars are going to be spent and what countries they're actually going to go to, it's his job to make sure there's not corruption. So when the vice president's son is hired by this company that Mr. Volker told us had a long history of corruption, was linked to the the government in Ukraine, I think that's the president doing his job.
So you think it was appropriate for the president to ask Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden? Do you know of any other instances where the president has called on foreign leaders to investigate corruption that did not involve one of his political rivals?
George, we heard from the ambassador for hours this Thursday, and the ambassador told us there was no quid pro quo, there was no linkage between any type of security assistance money and any type of investigation. The ambassador was clear. We have the transcript where there is no quid. Even Democrat chairman said after reading the transcript, even though before they got the transcript, they said there's going to be a quid pro quo in there. After reading it, they said there is not a quid pro quo. And the two individuals on the call, the two people on the call who know it best, President Trump and President Zelensky, said there was no pressure, no pushing, none of that. It was done in a professional manner. That's what Ambassador Volker told us in his
Ambassador Volker told you a lot of things this week. Let's show some of the texts right here on July 25th. This is the same day as the president's phone call. Ambassador Volker, good lunch, thanks. Heard from White House, assuming President Xi convinces Trump he will investigate, get to the bottom of what happened in 2016. We will nail down a date for a visit to Washington. Good luck, see you tomorrow. And then the Ambassador Bill Taylor on September 1st. Are we now saying the security assistance in the White House meeting are conditioned on investigations? Gordon Sondland said, call me. In that July 25th text right there, it's very direct. The White House meeting is being conditioned on the investigation.
Ambassador Volker told us exactly the opposite. He said there was no quid pro quo, no linkage to any investigation and the security assistance money. But this is Adam Schiff's partisan and unfair process that he's going through, releasing selective text. Why doesn't he release the whole transcript?
Well,
why don't we know?
I asked Hakeem Jeffries that exact question.
I appreciate you doing that, but the real question is, why don't you ask Adam Schiff, why won't he do it? The president released the call. Unprecedented. He released a call with a foreign leader. That hasn't been done very often, maybe not before, but why won't Adam Schiff do the same thing with why there were 67 pages of text messages? Why just a few handfuls selected, highlighted by the Democrats? The same Democrat staff who, by the way, met with this whistleblower before he even filed the complaint, and Adam Schiff wouldn't tell us that. The same Adam Schiff who did the false statement at the start of the hearing a week ago. The same Adam Schiff who met with Michael Cohen. His staff met with Michael Cohen for 10 hours before Michael Cohen testified. Why won't this is, and I think Americans see this.
And I asked Congressman Jeffries about Adam Schiff as well. You talk about Ambassador Volker. He seems to undercut your entire premise on this question of Joe Biden with something he said also on Thursday. Let me put that up right here. I have known former Vice President Biden for 24 years, and the suggestion that he would be influenced in his duties as Vice President by money for his son simply has no credibility to me. I know him as a man of integrity and dedication to our country. That seems to undercut the entire premise of what you're talking about.
No, it reinforces it, because Mr. Volker's entire testimony on Thursday said that there was no, he said we conducted ourselves in the highest professional manner, everyone involved. Mr. Volker is the special envoy to Ukraine. He knows more about this subject area than anyone, and he understood that Zelensky was different, and his whole focus was to get Zelensky and President Trump together, and he knew when they got together they would hit it off. There would be a connection, and that in the end, the best interest of the United States and the best interest of Ukraine would be served. And throughout that process, he was very clear. And this is why it's so wrong of what chairmanship is doing by not releasing the full transcript and giving you and the media the full context, and more importantly, the American people the full context, because he said throughout that process, there was never any quid pro quo. And when Sondland made his statement, George, the EU Ambassador Sondland made his statement, where he said, it's crystal clear, Bill, there is no quid pro quo of any kind. When he made that text message, you never highlight that one. When he made that, you know what Ambassador Volker told us about that text message? He said, we knew that was the truth, and he was speaking for us all, and that had been the case throughout the negotiations.
Ambassador Volker also said quite clearly right there, he believes Joe Biden is a man of integrity, did not do anything wrong. You know, what
I'm saying is, if you believe him there, then believe him with what he said throughout the entire 7 hours that he testified. And if Adam Schiff would release that, you would see that's the case.
We've asked him to release it. I have to go back to this because you still haven't answered the threshold question. Was it right for President Trump to ask China to investigate Joe Biden? Why can't you say yes or no?
Because I'm telling you what he said. I think his point was highlighting that when you're the President of the United States and you see something like this happen, China, he knows, is not going to investigate. He's just pointing out to the American people what they all think about it.
Not to believe what we see with our own eyes right there.
You're telling me the guy who's been tougher on China really thinks that's going to happen? It's not going to happen. He is highlighting what I think so many...
Whether or not it's going to happen, he's asking for it to happen.
Let me ask you this.
He's asking for it to happen.
Let me ask you this.
It's clear.
Why did Hunter Biden get the special deal with Burisma in Ukraine? Why? Because he was an expert in Ukraine? Because he was an expert in energy?
You're throwing out the
Why did Hunter Biden get the special deal that he got in China?
He didn't.
The president is pointing out what so many Americans see. That looks unfair. That looks like something smells about that.
So you're throwing out the charges that have been discredited about the Biden.
No, I'm not throwing out any charges. I'm not throwing out any charges.
You're not answering the question. Is it right for the president to ask the Chinese to investigate?
George, first of all, I'm not throwing out any charges. I'm just asking
You just did.
No, I'm not. I'm asking a fundamental question. Why did Hunter Biden get the deal? Why?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, no,
I know that he's been investigated by the Ukrainians and they found no wrongdoing. I know that for a fact.
You know what Ambassador Volker told us about the company that hired Mr. Biden's son? He said they had a long history of corruption. Again, we can't see that. We can't read that because Adam Schiff won't release the transcript. So all the president's doing is highlighting what so many Americans kind of wonder about. Yeah. Why did the vice president's son get that deal with Ukraine, Burisma, the energy company, and why did he get that deal? That's all he's doing.
But your only defense to what Democrats have said is an abuse of power. The president asking China to investigate the Bidens is that the president was joking, and we shouldn't take the president at his word. We shouldn't believe what we're seeing with our own eyes.
I'm talking about common sense. I'm talking about common sense. Do you really think President Trump believes China is going to investigate?
I believe he asked them to investigate.
To highlight and underscore a question that's on the minds of so many Americans, George. So why did Hunter Biden, why did the vice president's son suddenly get these deals?
We've been going 10 minutes. You still can't say whether you think it's right or wrong.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen. That's why, I mean, I just don't think that's what the president was really saying.
Congressman, thanks for your time this morning.
You bet. Thank you.